It's Agent M here, also known as Pastor Mallory, Children's Pastor at Northgate Wesleyan Church. And we are back. And I have to admit, I'm a little late. I was supposed to have this out by this morning, but I ran out of time. So I'm still getting it out today because we don't want to get behind because we have so many more characters to talk about. So let's jump right in to David number 2, because first we talked about what his life was like before he became king, and now we're going to talk about what his life was like when he was finally crowned as the king. However, before we jump into that, it is time to start off with what we're going to have the little agents do, because everyone needs a task and everybody needs to participate. So my challenge to the littles this time is that they're going to need help, but they can provide the words to fill in a poem that I've written. Because you see, one thing that David was very well known for was writing poetry. I mean, some of the Psalms are actually written by David. He has a very poetic and musical nature. And so I am going to have you guys fill in the blanks of a poem. So I will actually have it shown right here. And I'm now going to say it so that you can hear it. Everywhere where I say blank, that's where you're going to fill in a word, okay? God, you are blank and blank. Thank you for blank. I love you for helping me and guiding me. When I was blank, you were blank for me. May I praise you forever and ever. Now, for an example, I'll give you the words that I'm going to put in there. God, you are beautiful and mighty. Thank you for everything that I have. I love you for helping me and guiding me. When I was scared, you were strong for me. May I praise you forever and ever. So those are the words I chose, but you can choose any of your own words to put in there. Make it your own, because this is your praise to God. Poems can be used to glorify our God, which means tell him how wonderful he is. So there is my challenge to the littles, or anyone of any age. So now it's time to get into what the older agents have worked on. We jumped right in, found some more truth. And guys, it's a kind of a different story from our first portion of David. And let's just jump into our 3 points so that we can see what that means. The first point is, yes, David becomes king finally. Saul ends up going into a battle and is killed. And this really does make David sad because, you know, he tried to love him and he doesn't want this to happen in this way. He was hoping it would just be a peaceful way that he became king, but no, Saul made it a very aggressive kind of way. However, when this occurs, David is taken to Hebron and there he is crowned as king by the people, but this is only a portion of the Israelite people. Only Judah was crowning him as king. At this time, the Israelites are split into 2 nations. They have the Israel nation and the Judah nation. Only one side actually crowns David as king, and that is the southern portion, which is Judah. On the other end, though, they raise up their own king, who is one of Saul's sons. And Saul's commander, Abner, ends up taking one of the sons and taking him, making sure that he is raised up as the king of Israel. However, eventually, as time goes on, there will be wars that occur that ends up making it so that David also becomes king of Israel. They never combine into one kingdom. He kind of just is the king of Judah and the king of Israel. He eventually even goes up to Jerusalem and takes back the city from the Jebusites, and he makes it into his kind of headquarters place. And there he builds a palace and brings the Ark of the Covenant there, and he has intentions of building a home for the Ark in the city, just to recognize all the things that God has done. Now, even with saying all that, we need to get in my point number 2. And that is, unfortunately for David, it appears like him becoming king kind of messes him up. You know, it would be really hard to have all the things you ever desired at the tip of your fingers. I mean, he is very wealthy, has tons of money, and he has lots of power. He's got people who are going to do what he tells them to do. And unfortunately, it kind of seems like with all that wealth, he ends up making choices that are really wrong and really bad. In fact, he desires someone else's wife and ends up having the husband killed at the front lines of a war that he should have been at. As the king, it said, in a time when the kings were out and about at war, here's this king staying home, David, which was probably his first mistake, is that he wasn't even doing what he was supposed to be doing as king even then. And then he saw a beautiful woman, and she happened to be married, and unfortunately, he made bad choices. And it's almost like he doesn't even understand how wrong of a thing he did until a prophet comes in and basically tells him a story that David's like, oh, that's horrible. And he's like, yeah, it's a horrible story, David, and that is exactly what you did too. You're just like the person in this story who you don't like. So he kind of woke up and he realized he had done something really wrong. But it took a lot for him to see that because he was so blinded by all the things that he had. And unfortunately, that's not the only time he's disobedient. I mean, he is just a human being, so he is going to make mistakes. And his unfortunately are going to be written down so everyone gets to read about it. But, you know, some of his mistakes are pretty drastic and they cost the lives of others. And not only that, as he gets older, he becomes a little softer and a little more lax, and he doesn't hold his children to the accountability of the Lord. He kind of lets them get away with things that are evil and wrong, and instead of taking action, he kind of looks the other way, and a lot of sad things happen from that. Wars, his own son trying to take away his throne, you know, those things happen because of the choices he made. So it's not perfect in the kingdom of David, but we kind of see that the person that he turns out to be as king, it seems quite different from who he was as a young boy who's willing to boldly go into battle for the Lord and fears nothing and truly leans on whatever the Lord wishes for him to do. And he waits on the Lord to make the right choices before he ever takes action. And that's a big warning to us. Like, just because you get all the things you ever dreamed of, it doesn't mean you're going to be a better person or even more happy. In fact, David had it all and still desired things that weren't his. So be careful seeking after all that money and all those things you ever wanted, because in the end, the only one who can ever bless us and give us the desires of our heart is God. And so we're on to point number 3, and that is, at the end of his life, he does appoint his son Solomon to be king, which he did declare was going to happen when Solomon was born to Bathsheba. And he tells Solomon before he passes away to follow the Lord, to remember the things that God has done for them, to enter into that covenant with God so that he too can be blessed as God blessed David. And that's all we're going to be able to cover for King David. There was lots for us to look at. I had amazing helpers once again, and it is now time to talk about who are we going to speak about on Wednesday. And that person is going to be Esther. So wait till the end so that you can see the verses I want you to look up next. And as always, if you are new to watching these videos, then you can also be agents of truth and receive from us the profile documents that we are creating on every character that we've gone over. So if you would like a copy of all the characters that we have gone over so far and are going to go over, please email me right here. And I will make sure that you get a copy of all the profile documents we've created. So far, we've looked at a lot of characters in the Bible, and we have a lot more to go. So if you're new, welcome to the journey, and hopefully we can continue to add to the number of agents of truth. And the more people look in, the more information we can gather, which is awesome. well, peace out, my friends. See you Wednesday. Bye.